Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today I am going to be doing my picks for the Summer Showdown tournament. I'm here on the Overwatch League website, got the bracket up. I'm just going to walk you through it. I'm going to give you a look into my brain as I pick these games and share my thoughts, my opinions on who I think is going to win and how I think it is going to go. So, let's jump in and let's talk about it. And let's start by first addressing the meta, right? What compositions are people probably going to be running in this series or in this weekend? We've seen a lot of the Wrecking Ball style compositions coming out of the Eastern region. Obviously, the Shanghai Dragons ran it a lot in the June Joust, led them to victory over the Dallas Fuel. We also have seen a lot of it come out of the Chengdu Hunters, though that's not unusual for them. They've been a very Wrecking Ball heavy team for their entire existence, really. In North America, we saw, at least, this past weekend, we saw a lot of Rush. We saw a lot of Winston-based dive compositions. We even saw some Orisa-based compositions. So the two metas are very, very, very different. But Fearless, of course, in his post-match interview after the win over the Justice, I believe it was, he was asked by Danny his thoughts on the how good the Wrecking Ball compositions are that we're seeing in the APAC region. He basically said if you're good at that composition, you are unbeatable. It's just such a hard comp to break through. So with that in mind, it seems like a very good meta for teams like Chengdu and like Shanghai that have shown consistent success on the Wrecking Ball so far this tournament cycle. So that's definitely something that I have running through the back of my head. But I also think that just in terms of talent, right, we've seen the Dallas Fuel kind of run whatever they want. Basically have been undefeated in doing such a thing. So it'll be curious, or I will be curious to see what happens with that kind of in the back of my head as we move forward. But let's start with this first game. Chengdu Hunters taking on the Dallas Fuel. We saw the Dallas Fuel struggle against the Wrecking Ball in the June Joust. It was the hero pick that really threw them for a loop, and it really forced the Dallas Fuel to play a certain way that they maybe didn't want to play, obviously. Shanghai Dragons were very successful doing that. Chengdu looks, I believe it was Avril who said this on a broadcast. They look like kind of Shanghai light. They don't look quite as good as Shanghai, but they play a lot of the same types of things. And when we're seeing a lot of this kind of Tracer Sombra come out in the region, Chengdu's also running stuff like Pharah, so who really knows? But you're seeing a lot of really strong play in that kind of Tracer Sombra meta in the APAC region. And so that to me is a huge question mark about this matchup, because Dallas, I think, is going to probably be forced off of some of the things that they are more comfortable in a matchup with Chengdu, just because of the way Chengdu plays. I think Leave has been playing really, really well, especially recently. His Tracer looks really good. And so I am very interested in this matchup. And I think with map picks, obviously, you have more ability to put yourself on maps that you favor and that favor your play style. And in a world where you have map picks, better teams should always win those series. And so I think this one should be pretty close, because Chengdu will have the ability to force certain maps where Dallas won't be able to be comfortable. But I think Dallas should take this one. I am going to say it is a 3-2. I believe the first time these two teams played, it was a 3-2. I could be wrong. It could have been a 3-1. But I'm pretty sure it was a 3-2 when Chengdu went up against Dallas back in the May Melee. This, to me, is a really interesting matchup, though. I think it is very, very unique, because I don't think Dallas really look that good on half of the main tanks, right? I think Fearless is a great player, but you put him on the Orisa or the Wrecking Ball, I don't feel very confident in this team. But he can really carry and really play very well on the Winston especially, and his Reinhardt is good. I don't think it's incredible. I think this past weekend, when he played Mag, I thought Mag, in general, had the better Reinhardt performance, with the exception of the final map, which was, I believe, Nepal. I thought that was kind of the only time where I really think Fearless looked better on that Reinhardt than Mag had. So it'll be interesting to see. I think Dallas will try to do everything they can to force Chengdu off of those Wrecking Ball compositions, but I still think it'll be a very close series. Atlanta versus Shanghai, to me, is the very interesting series. I've been saying for the past couple of weeks that I think the Shanghai Dragons are the best team in the Overwatch League. I think they've just looked really, really good. Obviously, 2 weeks ago now, we saw them, well, I guess a week and a half ago, we saw them beat the Seoul Dynasty and the Philadelphia Fusion 3-0 straight across the board in one weekend. Then obviously we saw them beat the Hangzhou Spark this past weekend. So they've been beating the APAC teams that we would kind of consider to be the second, third, fourth, fifth best teams, even with Chengdu. That kind of group of teams where you kind of look at them as the next best. Shanghai's been rolling them for the most part, right? They lost one map this past tournament cycle. I think Atlanta is arguably better than all of those teams. I do think Atlanta's really good. I think Atlanta is just continuing to get better and better and better as time goes on. My big thing with Atlanta, though, is if it is true, if Fearless's words about these Wrecking Ball compositions being the best in the game right now, if he's right, and those compositions are the best, and they are the ones that are really, really, really carrying the meta going forward, I don't feel very confident about the Atlanta Reign on Wrecking Ball. We haven't seen a lot of it from them. For the most part, we have seen Arisas and Reinhardts out of them. But we haven't seen the Wrecking Ball, really. We know that they have some Winston play. We've seen them kind of improve on Winston, especially in the June Joust. They looked a lot better on the Winston. But against Shanghai, a team who I think just looks so strong on the Wrecking Ball, the last time these two teams played, it wasn't even close. I don't feel very confident in the Atlanta Reign's abilities to beat the Shanghai Dragons. And so I am going to give this one in the favor of the Shanghai Dragons. I am going to say it's a 3-1. I think that Atlanta has the ability to take maps. Obviously, when you can kind of force certain maps and certain compositions, you feel pretty good about their chances. And there's definitely certain maps in this series or in this pool where they'd probably do better. I think they've looked pretty good on Control all season. And this month in particular, they've looked very good on Control. Go back from the June Joust as well. And I think you can probably force maps like Eichenwald, where Wrecking Ball's good, but I think that Atlanta's been pretty good on Eichenwald, all things considered. I'm not 100% positive which maps I think I would say the Reign are favored in. I think maps that have kind of better ability for you to kind of find the impact on the Reinhardt or the Orisa are the maps you kind of favor. I think Eichenwald is one of those maps where Reinhardt is pretty strong. He tends to be a lot better on that map, but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I've misread Eichenwald for a long time, but that's the kind of thing I look at. But I just think Shanghai are too strong right now. And as good as I think Atlanta are, and they've improved a lot, I think that this is really the first time that we've seen the Eastern region be ahead of the meta. I think they are the ones who are kind of dictating the meta this time around, which I don't think was the case in the May Melee or the June Joust. And I think that is going to be what we see. I think you're going to have to force teams, I think, to play these Wrecking Ball compositions in a lot of cases. And the Sombra compositions, which we just haven't seen with the exception really of Dallas and the Gladiators, we haven't really seen any of the Western teams want to play Sombra, try to force Sombra, anything like that. So all things considered, I think that this is just a really good meta for the Shanghai Dragons. They would move on, of course, to the winners' finals to take on the Dallas Fuel. I think this one should also go the way of Shanghai. I think Shanghai is just the stronger team right now. Like I said, I think their read on the meta is better. They know how to play Wrecking Ball compositions better than anybody else does, in my opinion. And so I favor the Shanghai Dragons in this series. I think it's a 3-2. For me, it's hard to pick against Dallas in like a 3-0 or a 3-1 because they are really good. And, you go to a map like Volskaya, which the Dallas Fuel have not lost at all this season, but that's basically a guaranteed win, right? You can just take Shanghai to Volskaya in the event that you have that map pick. You're going to win that map most likely. If Shanghai can pull off a win on a map like Volskaya, well, then yeah, it's over. To me, there's no chance the Fuel win a series in a situation like that. But I just think Shanghai just looks so much better They beat the Fuel the last time they played them. The meta is not all that different. I don't think the Fuel look very comfortable against these Wrecking Ball looks. I think Chengdu's going to push them pretty far, and I think Shanghai's going to beat them. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a 3-1 or a 3-0 in favor of Shanghai. Like, I genuinely think they are that good, and the Fuel have looked pretty shaky. Now, I think they get a buff when they go to Hawaii, which is weird, because Russia's talked about how going to Hawaii kind of sucks, because there's a lot of things involved with it. But I really do like Shanghai. I think they are favored, in my opinion, to win the whole tournament. And so to me, this is a game that they should walk away with. But I think it'll be pretty close. For the losers bracket, first game, Chengdu versus the Atlanta Reign. I feel really, really skeptical about the Atlanta Reign here. I like the Reign, but I think that Chengdu, with the way that I think the meta's going to go, I think they are just better on the heroes that they need to be playing. They look incredible on Wrecking Ball. They are arguably the second best, if not the best, Wrecking Ball team in the league. I think Shanghai is probably the best right now, but historically they are among the best, or among the best, no pun intended, but pun totally intended, among the best when it comes to the Wrecking Ball compositions. So I think this series is deceptively strong for the Chengdu Hunters. I've been very high on the Reign. I think they are arguably right now second best team in North America. They've been the most consistent over the past 2 months. Most of their losses in the past 2 months have been to really, really good teams. Teams like the Dallas Fuel, teams like the Shanghai Dragons in the last tournament. So we know this is a good Reign team. We know they are a strong team. They've put up really strong performances. But I just don't feel very good about them in this meta. So I am going to pick Chengdu. I'm going to say it's going to be a 3-2. I think that Atlanta is too strong of a team to lose this series any worse than that. But I just really like what we've seen so far from Chengdu. They've surprised me. I think that they have a really good read on the meta. And so I'm picking them to win this one. For the losers finals, it would be Chengdu Hunters versus the Dallas Fuel if my predictions were to be correct. This one's a tough one for me. I like the matchup here. It was a 3-2 the first time I predicted it. Last time I predicted these two teams, I literally had the same situation where I had Shanghai. Then it was the Florida Mayhem. I had the Shanghai Dragons beating the Florida Mayhem in the first round, beating the Dallas Fuel in the second round, and then I had the Chengdu Hunters coming through the losers bracket to make it to the grand finals. And I almost think that's a really strong possibility, because I do think Chengdu do look good on this meta, as I've said now like 15 times. But I just can't see the Dallas Fuel dropping a series to the Chengdu Hunters. I just can't see it. Dallas, I think, is too adaptable. They adapt too well. They figure things out. I think Chengdu has too many holes and too many flaws as a team. So a team like Shanghai, right? Like, Shanghai's too good, I think. Shanghai just has such perfect team play. They know what they're doing, and they are arguably the most talented roster in the league. The Dallas Fuel are among the most talented rosters in the league, and they're super skilled, and they know how to work together. So even if they're not playing a really strong composition that's in the meta, they can still win because they just know how to play together as a team. But when you're up against Shanghai, who I think can play the meta no matter what the meta is, and they are about equally as skilled and just incredibly disciplined, it's hard to overcome a team like that. Chengdu plays pretty wild stuff. If they play something like Pharah, I think it would be a very interesting look, because the Dallas Fuel don't have a hit scan player right now. So unless they decided to scrim with Pine, since he's in Korea, and this would be the opportunity they would have with the lowest ping possible before he's able to get to the US, if he even is ever able to come to the US. Maybe that's something they would consider doing, but there's no reason to do that, because you're going to put yourself behind doing that. They don't have as much scrim time, so it doesn't really make a lot of sense. So I think it's hard to see a world in which Dallas loses the series, but there are definitely tons of meta compositions right now, and stuff we've seen out of Chengdu. Of course, the Pharah is the big one, but Gaga's Wrecking Ball looks very good. Leaves Tracer looks very good. And I think that their support line is playing really, really well. Whether it's Nisha or Yveltal, I think Monk looks really good. And I think Late Young has surprised me as how well he's played so far. I didn't think he would look this good taking over the starting position. But this team looks good to me. But I just think Dallas Fuel are too strong. So I'm once again going to say a 3-2 in favor of the Fuel. But I think this one could be pretty close once again. For the Grand Finals, I've basically been talking about how good I think Shanghai is and how I think Dallas are a little weaker right now, and that's going to be the narrative here. I'm going to say 4-2 victory for the Shanghai Dragons. I think they are just too good. I think this meta was built for them. I think their win over Dallas in the June Joust was not like a fluke or anything like that. I think the Shanghai Dragons just look really good right now. I think the meta is built for them, and I think they are going to take this series 4-2, and I think they are going to be our Summer Showdown champions. They weren't able to win it last year. They lost it to the Guangzhou Charge. They want a Summer Showdown title under their belt. It's the only tournament that they've never won in this tournament type of format, and so I think they want to take this one in that way. So that's it for me. Those are my picks and predictions. I cannot speak today. Let me know your thoughts on it down below. If you agree, disagree, if you think there's a team I judged wrong, if you think I'm incredibly smart and right about everything that I do, which I know you do, but you can criticize me a little bit. Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear from you. And if you want more videos like this in the future, consider liking and subscribing. But that is all from me. So I hope you are all staying safe and staying healthy. And until next time, bye-bye.